Hey there! We are back for part 2 of chapter 9. And you might think it's funny that I'm wearing the same clothes. Well, since we're reading chapter 9, even though you get to watch this on a different day, I'm just reading it on the same day. But, same clothes, different location. So check it out. I'm sitting in one of our cool chairs here in the kids' space. Whoosh. Right there? Yes. And then, do you see all the cool things we have going on here? So if you haven't made it into the library, again, here's my plug. I want you to come visit us and check out these really cool books behind here in these bins behind me. We have our series. I see Stink back there. Junie B. Jones. We have movies. And I just heard from somebody today. We're getting some more Big Nate and a new Dog Man. So, I don't know. Maybe you want to come on down. Check those out. Alright. I gotta get us reset up. Okay, so I don't know if you remember this, but they were headed to the Charming Kingdom and to the palace. And before they knew it, Alex and Connor were being escorted into the palace. So if you didn't hear the last chapter, you want to hear how Connor got them into the palace. They were completely in over their heads. Did this guard know they were lying, and was he now escorting them directly to the dungeon? Or perhaps Connor's lie was truer than they thought, and they were about to meet a couple that were definitely not their parents. "Allow me to introduce myself," the guard said. "I'm Sir Lambton, the head of the Queen's Royal Guard. Welcome to the palace." "Thank you," Connor said. "I'm Connor Wishington, and this is my sister Alex." "Where are you from, Mr. and Ms. Wishington?" Lambton asked. "Upstate Northern Kingdom," Connor said. Even he looked surprised by the words coming out of his mouth. "But our parents have a summer home in the south of the Sleeping Kingdom and a condo in the Fairy Kingdom." Alex's eyes opened so wide she had to remind herself to blink. "Ah, I see," Lambton said with a curious look. "Would you like me to take your bags for you?" "No, that's quite all right," Alex said. "We'll manage." Lambton led the twins down a long hallway behind all the other guests. There were many large portraits of past rulers in the walls, and a red carpet ran under their feet. Alex and Connor were all eyes. They had never been inside a royal palace before. There were so many shiny things to look at. Lambton seemed to be enjoying their excitement. He leaned between them and softly said, "You're sneaking into the palace, aren't you?" Alex desperately looked to Connor, but he was out of lies for the night. "Please don't throw us into the dungeon," Alex pleaded. "We didn't mean any harm." Connor looked at his sister with a raised eyebrow. Did she mean no harm besides breaking into the palace and stealing a cherished item? Lambton chuckled. "I've seen a lot of youngsters try to sneak into a royal hall before, but never have I been so entertained by such an attempt," he said. "So you aren't going to throw us in a cell and hang us upside down by our toenails?" Connor asked. "We stopped doing that ages ago," Lambton said. "On the contrary, it would be my honor to show you two around." "Really?" Connor said. "That would be lovely," Alex said, clasping her hands together. "Thank you." At the end of the hall, Lambton led the twins through a pair of golden doors into the ballroom. At first, the sight was overwhelming. There were so many things to look at. It was impossible to focus on any one thing long enough to comprehend what it was. There was so much movement and color. The biggest chandelier they had ever seen, with thousands of candles, hung from the ceiling above an enormous dance floor. Hundreds of formally dressed men and women filled the space. Some mingled on the sides, while others danced to the music played by a small orchestra in the corner. Everything from the archways to the accents in the walls was golden. A grand staircase descended in the back of the room just behind two empty thrones. Connor knew it would only be a few seconds before Alex started crying. "It's so beautiful," Alex said with teary eyes. "Is this where they had the ball where Cinderella and the prince met?" "Indeed," Lambton said. "I'll never forget it. I was just a simple guard back then. The prince was meeting all the young women in the kingdom in hopes of finding a bride. Cinderella was the last to arrive that night. She entered the room just as we are now, and everyone stopped to look at her. How did she look? Alex asked. Magical, Lambton said with a smile, lost in his own memory. She wore a long violet dress that sparkled as she walked. I remember hearing the soft taps of her glass slippers as she walked past. As soon as the prince saw her, it was love at first sight. The whole palace could feel it. Suddenly, a man blew a trumpet at the foot of the guard. Oh my. So our lights work on movement, and I have not moved around. So let's see if I... Oh, there we go. I'm going to have to stand up in the middle. It was with great honor that I welcome you to the royal ball this evening. Now please give a warm welcome to their royal majesties, King Charming and Queen Cinderella. The guests cheered and burst into applause. The royal couple entered the ballroom, slowly making their way down the grand staircase. Alex grabbed onto Connor's arm. Connor, Alex gasped. It's Cinderella! It's Cinderella! Although the twins had only seen illustrations of her, Cinderella was more beautiful than they'd ever expected. Her hair was auburn and styled behind a crystal tiara. She wore white gloves, and a long turquoise gown flowed down around her, accentuating her pregnant belly. Despite all the gold and glorious chandelier, her eyes and smile were the brightest things in the room. King Charming was the definition of dashing. He was every bit as handsome as any description ever written about him. He had a mesmerizing smile and thick, wavy hair under a large golden crown. He could easily have been a movie star back in the twins' world. The king and queen took their seats in the thrones, and the guard with the trumpet blew the opening notes of another announcement. Let the ball begin, the guard with the trumpet proclaimed, and was greeted with another round of excited applause. The majority of the guests rushed to the dance floor. The orchestra began playing a fast-paced symphony. All the guests paired up and began waltzing around the room, each looking lovingly into their partner's eyes the entire time. The king and queen remained seated. You could tell Cinderella wanted to join the dance, but her pregnancy was preventing her from doing so. King Charming only had eyes for his wife. He was enjoying her watching the dance more than the actual dance itself. At one point, each of the dancing men collected a shoe from their partners and circled them with it before placing it on their feet. A Cinderellian tribute, no doubt. Time flew by as the twins watched the ball. The unborn child Cinderella was carrying must have been kicking from all the excitement. Cinderella appeared to have some discomfort and had been rubbing her belly and shifting in her seat for some time. She eventually whispered something into King Charming's ear. King Charming took his wife's hand and carefully helped her back up the grand staircase. The guard blew his trumpet again. The queen is tired and wishes to rest, but she and the king welcome you to continue the celebration without their presence. The crowd happily obliged and continued their fun. Would you like the tour of the palace? Lambton asked the twins. More than anything, Alex asked. Lambton escorted the twins out of the ballroom and down a similar hall to the one they had first entered the palace through. It, too, was a home to several portraits of past rulers and a long red carpet. This palace was built over 500 years ago, Lambton told